Cléo from 5 to 7 is, I think, an interesting film, absorbingly photographed, strongly performed, superbly scripted, and rather thoroughly watchable. One of the early instances of a women's cinema, a cinematic ethos entirely by and for, relaying a pathos of feminine identity. Many of the major auteurs of the cinema had been male up to that point in time, and even a figure like Ida Lupino was mostly confined within the barriers of the studio system, whereas Varda benefited from the carte blanche creative possibilities embraced by the Nouveau Vague generation. A film composed by its director, who penned the screenplay for their own personal, expressive reasons, not for or by the behest of a producer. Varda's work is most possibly a significant milestone in the history of the medium for that reason alone. But even when considering it as a piece of screenwriting, photographic enunciation, or distilling of a moment in time, Varda's feature is an immensely commendable endeavour and one of many marvellous films in the Nouvelle Vague epoch. In that year, 1962, it was released with other major works including Truffaut's Jules et Jim, Romer's The Sign of Leo, Marker's highly regarded short La Jetée, and Godard's Vivre sa vie, which I was never a big fan of personally, but was or is a highly lauded film in the recognised critic circles. A 2019 list by BBC Culture listed this as the second greatest film ever directed by a woman, and was one of many incredibly terrific films on the list, along with, in chronological order, the 1926 animated influential classic The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, directed by Lotte Reinegger and Carl Koch, Lupino's Outrage and The Hitchhiker, Shirley Clark's The Connection, Varda's slightly later and also wholly stellar film Happiness, as well as her latest still film Vagabond, and her latest still film The Gleaners and I is very good too, I feel. Then 2008's The Beaches of Agnes is fairly nice to my memory. Daisies by Vera Shitilova, Barbara Loden's Wanda, Kira Muratova's The Long Farewell, along with her later film The Asphenic Syndrome, which to my mind is a much finer candidate for topping the list compared to what did, which I'll get to later. Marguerite Duras' India Song, Lino Wertmüller's Seven Beauties, Chantal Ackerman's Jeanne Dielman, News from Home, and Anna's Meetings, Barbara Koppel's Harlan County, USA, Larissa Shepitko's The Ascent, Marguerite von Trotter's Marianne and Julian, Catherine Bigelow's Near Dark and Strange Days, Claire Denis' Chocolat and Beau Travail. The other film on the list most worthy of topping the list as opposed to what did. Though also the magnificent feature, 35 Shots of Rum, along with White Material from '09, Mira Nair's Salam Bombay, Agnieszka Holland's Europa Europa, Jenny Livingston's Paris is Burning, Julie Dasher's Daughters of the Dust, Sally Potter's Orlando, Lynn Ramsey's Ratcatcher, and Mervyn Collar, and to some extent we need to talk about Kevin, but to a notably lesser extent in my view. The Wachowskis' The Matrix, Lucretia Martel's The Swamp and The Headless Woman, Patty Jenkins' Monster, Andrea Arnold's Red Road and American Honey, Kelly Reichardt's Wendy and Lucy and Meek's Cutoff. I quite liked A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night by Anna Lily Amirpour. I loved Raw by Julia Ducournau from 2016. Marinades, Tony Erdmann, an amazing film I highly recommend you will see if you still haven't. A film I champion a lot and have on this channel prior. And then also a top 5 from this list for me without a doubt is Ildiko Agnetti's On Body and Soul, a masterpiece of the 2010s and of world cinema history. All of the films I've seen from Agnetti are wholly brilliant features. They also listed a couple of Leni Riefenstahl films. I don't want to overly celebrate those too much, but they do have their merits. I wanted a major asterisk on those ones if I were to mention them here. Some people like The Night Porter. It is not bad, not one of my major favourites either though. And then with Jane Campion, An Angel at My Table, The Piano, which did top the list. Those are okay, sure, I will not deny that. But Bright Star, also on the list, I thought was banal, dull, predictable, nothing. And I was not personally particularly impressed with it, and I'm surprised so many people seem to be, conversely. I don't mind Sofia Coppola's The Virgin Suicides, but don't care as much for the other films listed from her on this ranking, those being Lost in Translation, Marie Antoinette, and Somewhere. I don't entirely dislike them, but I don't get much out of them really. I would love to see The Silences of the Palace by Mufida Tlatli, but I have not yet. As it happens, I would like to see Whale Rider by Nikki Caro too. I haven't seen yet Zama by the great director Lucretia Martel, though I've been recommended the novel by 2 individuals, one who read it to the others recommending it to me initially. I'm slightly curious about Lynn Ramsey's 2017 film You Would Never Really Hear, so we'll see how that goes. I I want to see Leave No Trace by Deborah Granick from 2018, Happy as Lazaro by Alice Roraka from the same year, The Souvenir by Joanna Hogg, and Portrait of a Lady on Fire by Celine Sciamma, both from 2019. But there's plenty of films on this list which pale in comparison to the quality works on here. For example, Fast Times at Ridgemont High by Amy Heckerling, Point Break by Catherine Bigelow, Clueless by Amy Heckerling, American Psycho by Mary Harron, The Hurt Locker by Catherine Bigelow, Fish Tank by Andrea Arnold. It is not bad, but I actually prefer an earlier Polish film titled Roni, aka Crows, directed by a woman also, Dorota Kedzierzowska. The Kids Are Alright by Lisa Cholodenko, Winter's Bone by Deborah Granick, Stories We Tell by Sarah Polly. I prefer her films Away From Her and Women Talking. Zero Dark 30 by Catherine Bigelow, The Babadook by Jennifer Kent. I don't like either of her features. I don't want to get into it again today. I've gone on about this a couple of times before. Can't be bothered again. Lady Bird by Greta Gerwig, yuck. One of the most unimpressive of the esteemed directors currently working in the adjacent or overtly mainstream filmmaking. That's just me though. Some works impress me and I envy their talents and achievements, and there are others which I personally do not. Nothing I can do about that. Other noteworthy films of 1962 include David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia, the aforementioned Truffaut's Jules et Jim, Jean-Pierre Melville's Les Doulos, Akira Kurosawa's rather solid sequel, Sanjuro, was a quite fun work, Terence Young's Dr. No, John Frankenheimer's The Manchurian Candidate, The Unscrupulous Ones by Rai Guerra, The Tale of Zatoichi by Kenji Misumi, The 300 Spartans by Rudolph Matt, and a film called The Sea, highly downstream of Antonioni's L'Avventura, titled, The Sea, also an Italian film. That's this one. Thanks for viewing if you have, and have a great day or night wherever you are. I wish you all great happiness and peace.